Perfect. Hi, Elizabeth. I am so happy. I saw your presentation yesterday, and I picked up a lot of the cues that I needed for State of Future Index. A very brief. Elizabeth has a fascinating career and has a fascinating professional background on futures research, and she's the kind of person who would really give you an in-depth understanding of what the Millennium Project does. A little background on her. Elizabeth Florescu is Director of Research at the Millennium Project. She's been working with the project since 1997. It's since the 15 challenges came up. She is the co-author of the annual State of the Future, which I was explaining in my presentation, and of the several other reports and articles in the domain of foresight and security, and the work related to the Millennium Project Global Futures Intelligence System, the State of the Future Index, and so on. While she's been a policy analyst at the European Commission between 2016 to 2019, she has also developed the Megatrends Hub. Thank you, Elizabeth, for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. And well, sorry for missing you. Somehow between your time, the CET time frame, and Eastern, I missed it. My intention was to join because I'm sure that a part of what I have to say, you already covered. So I didn't want to cover more. Now, another issue is that we are all among ourselves here. And I'm not sure if it makes sense to explain what the Millennium Project is, but just in case there are some viewers online on YouTube, or since this will be recorded, I will just very fast go through a few notes of what the Millennium Project is, how it was born, and then what I want is actually to have a conversation, because that's what I wanted from the beginning. So I would like you guys to stay on as many as you can, and for as long as you can. So you tell us, how do you use the Millennium Project? How does it contribute to futures literacy in your country or in your area of expertise? Why is the Millennium Project important? And for you, since we are all volunteers, so why is it important for each of us? Because most of the people who are in the Millennium Project are for different reasons, although the overarching reason is the same: to build the best possible future for humanity as a whole. But a specific interest, they have different areas where and how they use the Millennium Project. So just for those who are not familiar or very familiar with the Millennium Project, I will go very fast through some of the characteristics. And I will have share screen. So what's the most important is the Millennium Project is a trans institution. And it appeared as a coalition of the willing. No, it was not a political decision. It wasn't the decision of just a certain country or an organization or so to come up. When Jerry and Ted began the founding of the Millennium Project in 1991, immediately after the Cold War, finally it was possible for the world to think together. The Iron Curtain was down, and finally we could think together about the future. There were already two organizations, the World Future Studies Federation and the World Future Society, that were known globally, and so, but none of them was producing content in the sense of following in a system way, in the systematic, so to see the whole system, the whole globe, the whole issues, opportunities, and so of the globe, and follow them systematically. How change occurs, what are the events that occur, and how will they change all the future of humanity. So that's when Ted and Jerry thought, hey, let's do it. And they had support immediately from other people from around the world. And they came up with the idea of the Millennium Project. And at that time, Jerry was executive director of the American Council for the United Nations University. For those who don't know, the United Nations University is a kind of a think tank, in-house think tank of the UN. And they brought it up there. Hey, would it be interesting? Sure, it would be, but maybe somebody is doing it already. And it was a 3 years feasibility study that was conducted for two reasons, mainly, for many others, but two reasons mainly, to see what is there already or not an organization doing that kind of research. The answer was no. And the other was, is it really possible to have people from different backgrounds, different ideologies, different countries, putting their heads together to think about the future and openly? And the answer was there is no other organization, and goodwill among futurists and experts from different domains who contribute to the future is there is. So the Millennium Project was born. It was incorporated in 1996. So the idea started in 1991. And it was in 1996 that it was incorporated, and it functioned for 10 years under the UN. And then in 2006 or 9, I'm sorry, it became independent. And so that people are really not restricted, because there were some comments already that, well, some of the participants express themselves, but doesn't really represent ideas of their countries and so. And in order to avoid any friction or so, we became independent. And since it was born, it keeps on growing, as you guys just mentioned. We are 67 nodes now. So, and I like what Jose says. Yes, almost 70. Because if we think about other countries that are not officially nodes, but contribute in a way or another, I think we are even over 70. And these people are coming from different organizations. The first ones were, and the Millennium Project was run, as I said, under the UN. Some are representatives or work for governments. Most of them are NGOs or foundations. We have also corporations who, some people work for corporations, and we had for corporations who were sponsoring the Millennium Project. And very many are from academia. When we speak about sponsoring, I want to single out one thing. The Millennium Project was never influenced in its results by the sponsoring organizations. No sponsoring organization ever tried to influence the outcomes. They used them, they supported us a lot, but we were never under pressure from anyone to, unlike many other, as you know, research. We mentioned the nodes. I still have the wrong, it's 65, but no, 67. And the two networks, European and Latin American. And now we learned that probably the Arab countries will want to make a network too. We might have other networks that join. That's very interesting that we have these networks, because the networks themselves, and I will ask Jose later on to comment on that, on RIBER. They themselves develop their own research and adapt the Millennium Project system of the methodology, system of thinking, the cooperation. They adapt it to their region, because there are specifics for each region. And it makes the cooperation between those members much easier, because they work on specifics. The nodes themselves are actually collaboration networks. It's not that one person is the node. One person is the chair, or there are two people who co-chair a node. but each node itself, it's a network of people from that very country, which is also very important. And as far as we know, the Millennium Project is the first organization that began working like this. We have no idea of any other organization, and we try to find out any other organization that began working like this, like a trans institution with people completely willingly contributing their time, energy, and knowledge for the best of humanity, or for the best of the future. And that's something that futures literacy itself have to learn and propagate. And probably it is because now UNESCO began, but they work only with academia. So that's a restriction for them. Well, we don't have that restriction. The Millennium Project doesn't have that restriction. But that's something that should be, in a way or another, expanded and evolve. How did the 15 global challenges emerge? Many people don't know. And yesterday we had a session on frameworks, and we specifically, frameworks for thinking about the future. And we specifically picked the Sustainable Development Goals and the global challenges. Why? Because they are completely different and with different agenda. The Sustainable Development Goals is a framework that was negotiated, and it's politically. And it's a political way to focus policy making, to focus funding, to focus attention of countries. The global challenges is a collaborative, emerge collaboratively. It's a collaborative work that is continuously changing. And it doesn't need anyone's approval except of the people who contribute to it, to them. And it also captures the knowledge that is out there beyond the club, the small club of policymakers, of futurists, or specific executives, or experts in a domain. It's much larger than that. It captures everything that it can. What policymakers think, what experts in different domains think, what academia is focusing on. So it's much, much larger. And civil society. We listen to what civil society has to say. And that's why it is a collaborative. So it's not political as the SDGs, it's a collaborative work. And the way they were born or emerged was in 1996, when I said that the Millennium Project has been incorporated. The first Delphi, at that time, there was still the paper Delphi sent in by fax and mailed, and so I even missed my son's graduation because that very evening we had to send out the Delphis, to mail out the Delphis. So the first question was, what are the issues that humanity is facing at the turn of the millennium? But long-term issues, not just 3 years issues. What will be the issues that the humanity will be facing in the new millennium? That's why it's called the Millennium Project. It was supposed to be just until the turn of the millennium, actually. But it evolved so well, and people ask, well, keep it on going. don't kill it after 2000, after the year 2000, and that's how it goes. And we collected 182 developments that were just distilled down in 15 issues. Next year, the planning committee said, well, there aren't only issues, there are opportunities there. Which are those? Believe it or not, they were again around 180, and again, just by accident, they were distilled down in 15 opportunities. And now we had 2 products, 1997 State of the Future with the Issues, 1998 State of the Future with the Opportunities. Good. What do you do with them? They are not punctual. They are not just for now. Well, it would be interesting to follow them. Yeah, but you follow issues and opportunities. Let's merge them. And that's how the challenges. What are issues and opportunities? Well, they are challenges. And that's how the challenges were born. And again, believe me, I worked on them. It's absolutely by accident that they are 15. And I am not obsessed about 15 or 20 or so. And I will throw in an anecdote. When I began working on the megatrends at the European Commission, and we also had to distill down ideas that emerged from different interviews and the workshops. And so anyway, I turned them, I got to 15 each time. And I just didn't want them to be 15 again. So the commission will forgive me. But I said, no, we have to either 16. 16 made no sense, so we made it 14. We could merge some of them because I just didn't want them to be 15 again. And also to avoid any confusion with the global challenges. Those are megatrends are completely different things. They are looking at trends and in a different way. But I'm not obsessed with any 15. It just comes out somehow accidentally all the time. So that's how the 15 global challenges emerged. And since then, we keep on updating them. And then in 2000, practically in 1999 already, Ted came up with the idea. And we heard that, well, it's nice to have qualitative research, but it makes more impact, and I think Puruesh might have mentioned it in her presentation, it makes more impact when you have a quantitative thing to show to politicians. And we said, yeah, but how can you capture the future in quantitatively? And then the State of the Future idea index came up. And we conducted a few studies on what Delphi's and so what should be included, which are the variables, and since then it's evolving. Now we arrive to 30 variables that we try to keep more or less constant because we want to be able to follow change. If you don't keep them constant, if you all the time adapt the index, that you lose history and you lose focus. And so we try to do it, to keep it at these 30 variables, which we think also it's very balanced. We try to balance all the aspects of the challenges to be represented in the index. And we have very good data collection also for the indicators that we included, because that's also very important to have reliable data. And it took us a while until we decided on the data, on the indicators. And even now we recompute each time using historical data, because as you know, historical data changes. Does it change because it's recomputed or because the first time it was either wrongly, intentionally, or accidentally reported? We don't know, but it does change. We recompute each time and we compare with the State of the Future index that we did before. We still hope, and that's why it's in italic, that we will get to an automation of the SOFI computation. It was supposed to happen a while ago, but unfortunately, the guy who worked on the Global Futures Intelligence System and developed the real-time Delphi and so for us was supposed to also develop the SOFI computation automation, but then he got hired over for a way, way higher salary that the Millennium Project could afford to pay him, and he left. And since then, we couldn't afford to hire someone else. But we still hope that at some point we will get to a computation of the State of the Future index automatically. Now, we all know the 15 global challenges. I don't think I should go through those. They are available and people can learn them. The State of the Future index that Puruesh already presented, and I don't want to duplicate the presentation. This is the latest we computed, and in 2021 we expect to publish a new State of the Future report version of the report, probably 2020. We tried to do it this year, but we were, because it would have been nice, State of the Future Report 20, version 20, published in 2020. And we really wanted to do it, but we got so much sidetracked by all other events and all other demands on the project that we just couldn't manage to focus on the State of the Future. Next year, we hope to be able to do it. And then we will compute the State of the Future Index, and hopefully we will see how the pandemic impacted. Hopefully data will be out by then, because here we can see how the recession of 2008-9 impacted the SOFI. I'm curious to see how the pandemic will show how impacts the State of the Future Index that we will con. Now, you all know that all the Millennium Project work is now available in the Global Futures Intelligence System, which again, I dare to claim that is the first foresight foresight intelligence system put together, where you find methods, research, people can collaborate, the 15 global challenges are updated. We have indicators that measure change, not just on the sustainable development development goals, for example, but on all the indicators that we consider are good enough to measure change and to identify events that have an impact on the future. This is the latest version of the State of the Future. So we have this in paper. You know, we all know the methods, which still continues to be one of our best sellers, and it's many years already. I don't even remember when did it come out, but each year we get very, very many orders because foresight began being taught in more and more universities. And then the future research methods are given as must read because they are they have the methods, and libraries order it. Still probably not as much income as we should have out of it, because a lot, as you know, gets pirated or passes around, and one person orders it from the whole group, and then they share the link and download it, and we have no control over it because our download is so that we cannot control. We give once the link, and then whoever has the link can download it. Unfortunately, again, because we can't afford to have a good IT person who actually would put together all the global futures intelligence and our ordering system with control keys to avoid this. Some other research that we have done, and most of you participated already in them. One that I would like to specifically mention because of the summit, because of the theme of the summit, is future ethical issues. And the other day, Jose remembers, we were, and Mara was there too, we had a conversation with the guy who is the chair of Heritage Futures for UNESCO. And he said that we should look more into how ethics and culture changes around the world and over the future. So we know how to address all the challenges that arise. And he was right. And, and he pointed out the importance of heritage future. What do we live today? Or what's the heritage that the future lives? It's not only history and archaeology that matters. We create history as we live. And today, tomorrow is already history. And even the next decade will be history in the other decade, not speaking about the century. Our century will be history next century. what do we leave as heritage? So we should have, and I'm happy that I didn't know that UNESCO has actually a heritage future department. And the chair came to the Millennium Project discussion the other day, asking us to look more into how ethical and cultural issues change over time. And how does that impact future thinking? Not just futures literacy, future thinking in general. And the other is that study that I would like to mention is the changing to education. Because education still lags behind in renewing the system of values that it is based on. We just give knowledge by the tons, and don't tell our students what to do with that knowledge. We let them discover by themselves. Well, scratch their head. By the time they discover, for many of them, it's too late, or they don't discover the right thing because they get hired by God knows what organization and so. And so the change in education, maybe at these times, that when change happens so fast and futures become so important because it becomes very, very soon history. And the whole system is so important. It's it's of utmost importance. The changes to the education system. Now, how to do it, it's not to me to lecture you, but it is of the Millennium Project goal to look at it. And it's one of the main aspects that Jerry is looking in the Work Technology 2050 study. Each of the three scenarios includes how education should change way beyond teaching science, technology, math, and so on. Teaching futures literacy, including futures literacy into the curriculum and having it at all levels, not just for students, but for CEOs, for experts, for citizens as a whole. It's extremely important because then they will apply in their everyday work. When they do something, where they will think, how does this relate to all the other aspects of society that have to be fixed? How does it change? How does my work impact the future? And it's important for them also to know which are the areas that need more attention. Yesterday, I showed a map that we did at the European Commission for DG Research and Development, DG RTD at the European Commission, that mapped emerging science and technology and innovation, even social innovation, with the Sustainable Development Goals. And we noticed a lot of gaps. Some goals are very well served, overly served, mostly health, because obviously everybody cares about health, which has over 30 of the 100 bricks. That's the breakthroughs, RIBS, research and innovation breakthroughs that were identified through another study that was conducted for the Commission by Fraunhofen and Finland Futures Academy, and so a consortium. So out of the 100 RIBs, about 30, more than 30, are serving one development goal. Well, the same RIBs serve other goals too, don't get me wrong, but to have so many for one and have only 2, 3 for goals like inequality, addressing inequality, reducing inequality. It had only 3, I think, or so, innovations that help. That's part of lack of futures literacy, because academia, research companies, corporations, all those, the social corporate social responsibility has been launched and has many adepts. should look at the Sustainable Development Goals, but they don't look how do my research or which are the gaps where more research is needed in order to address the Sustainable Development Goals as a whole, in order to address the 15 global challenges of the Millennium Project as a whole. So to make sure that they are all in a way or another addressed. So that, yes, that's one of the education. And futures literacy is important to address the work technology issues that are emerging faster than we are prepared to admit or to address. And the other study, no surprise that we got sidetracked with, was the American Red Cross asked us to conduct fast a study on some scenarios for 1.5 to 2 years. That's the shortest time frame that we ever conducted scenarios for, and it's very difficult for short time frames. I can tell you that much to write scenarios on how might the pandemic evolve. It wasn't an easy study, I can tell, and because it was for the American Red Cross, we conducted kind of two parallel things. One was the global view, and the other was specifically US, both as of health point of view and economic, social points of view and research. Now, why is this important? The American Red Cross asked us to conduct it because they were so busy with their everyday life and to address the crisis of the pandemic, of the fires in the West, of the floods in the East, of the hurricanes in the mid-America, that they just didn't have time to think for the next week, let alone the next year. And then they needed, but they were aware that they need futures literacy, that they need to be more educated about what is coming up in the next year in order to be prepared strategically to address the challenges that they will be faced with. And that's why they ask us if we agree to do them. We obviously, you agree, right? Because that's again for, and from this, all the other countries and regions can learn. And we made the report and we make the methodology available to anyone who wants to emulate it, because most of it can be adapted, and so to absolutely any country or any region. Maybe the European Foresight Network would run one for Europe. I don't know if RIBS considers to run one for Latin America and Iberian Peninsula. So, but that shows how a wild card, that was the pandemic was considered the wild card just very, very recently. In 2016, when we conducted a study, a workshop for NATO Advanced Research Department, a pandemic came up as the most important threat. At that time, because we looked of counter-terrorist point of view, as a potential bio-terror error event. And still we don't know if this one was a bio-error or event or not. So we still, the jury is still out there. I mean, I know that the official version is that it came from animals, but there are many scientists who claim otherwise, and I'm not good enough to judge who is right or wrong. But imagine it would have been a bioterror or error, T in parentheses, error event. What would have that meant? Well, the Biological Weapons Convention, does it apply or not? Even if it would apply, it has no enforcement mechanism, so we are dead in the water. The only ones who could eventually refer it to higher forums would have been the Security Council. Most of the countries who would have been eventually involved veto members of the Security Council, so we are that. That means that we need to adapt the international system of law to the new conditions that appear, that are generated by us, by humans. But we have to learn to deal with it. And we have to adapt our rulings to that. And that's all of my part. Again, most of the people who joined us, now we are 20 and more, welcome to everyone. I don't know who missed what, but now I would like to open the floor for the conversation. This is supposed to be a conversation, not a presentation. I just presented the Millennium Project in general for those who are not familiar with it. But now on, I would like to stop sharing and really open it for conversation. Welcome to everyone, by the way.
Elizabeth, I'm very happy to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very, very happy to see you today. And I'm very happy to hear you this morning, because all you say is what I would like with Millennium Project, and the spirit of the Millennium Project is here. And I was very happy to hear you when you say that, in fact, there is not only academia in Millennium Project spirit, and I think that it's a very important thing to know today. And I'm come from academia, it's easy for me to say that, but I think that it's very important to open the different people to participate to Millennium Project, and to have very diverse approach of the thinking the futures. And I believe of global future intelligence system too. I think that it's very important to work on this method, and to help participants to participate very regular at this global future intelligence system. And I think that it's also a method to have a new approach of the future, because in function of what will be integrated in this future intelligence system, we'll be able to know what is are in the mind of people, and what will be the subject very important for the humanity. And it's another way of thinking the global future intelligence system. And I think that I know that it's very complex to help and to use it and to say, oh, come in and participate to the global future intelligence system. And I think that we need to communicate more and more on this method to have the new student and the youth as participants of this global future intelligence system. I hope for the future and now.
Yes, right. You make a very good point. Thank you, Safia, and also very nice to see you and collaborate with you again. And thank you so much for all your great work for the many years. And with the Global Futures Intelligence System, yes, you point out something very interesting, which I forgot to mention, because that helps the Global Futures Intelligence System, but by being open for collaboration to everyone, might help us identify some triggers for the future, or thinking, or trends in thinking.
Yes,
that we didn't see it, because yes, many of us might suffer of foresight myopia, We are so focused on what we were
Yes.
used to see and think that are the trends that we
Yes.
will be missing some trends that come from another generation, from the Z generation and N generation.
Yes.
And
I will be very interesting to analyze what are in global intelligence system to maybe find some new signal for the future.
Exactly, new signals.
Yes.
Exactly. Excellent point. We should make sure that we make it also in the afternoon. Jerry will have in the afternoon a session specifically on the global futures intelligence.
Yes, I will be there.
Yeah, make sure you point this out, because it's very important, and it's something that we were thinking, but probably not so loudly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to say one thing, a really small thing. Apart the privilege of being part of this amazing network, the first time I met Jerry was, I think, around 2007. I don't even remember. I was a young girl. I came to Washington after he came to Italy, and our whole world opened up, you know, because you are so varied and so really able to, you know, make and disseminate things and make people understand and learn and open up their minds. And so still feel privileged to be in this network. But what I noticed during the years, I'm just, you know, thinking aloud with you, is that future studies have such, you know, they are full of possibilities and methodologies and areas, you know, different areas, and they are still, you know, they still have difficulties to be put together. It's not only a matter of people and institutions and organizations and private sector and citizen participation and so on. We have to work on this side to put all knowledge and expertise together. But in my opinion, we should also work on putting the methodology together, because we have specific methods coming from the foresight field, but we also have other methods that could be, you know, reorganized to be applied for foresight. I'm thinking about participatory research, which is so wide and going on, you know, going on a different sector, but they could be all, you know, put together and used for going farther in time with, you know, future literacy and future thinking. And yeah, I'm reflecting about that lately, because sometimes I heard somebody saying, we have our own method, we do foresight, this is how foresight is supposed to be. But this is not my opinion. I mean, because there are various souls, you know, coming into the foresight studies. I'm thinking about design thinking, for instance, which is new and it's been developed on a different path. I'm thinking about participatory again, and future literacy is somehow part of this field, but it should be connected more with statistical field related to foresight. Just one thought, you know, while you were thinking, it came up.
So good morning to everyone. I'm Antonella Spada. I'm based in Brussels right now, but I have been working in mainly in Latin America with UNDP on foresight for over 10 years. And I agree with the latest point, but also the previous one. And just to add up, I guess it's important perhaps to focus a bit on how we relate research to action, but to actions in the sense on social engagement, because I guess the not only the opportunities, but the challenge we face need really not only awareness, as you mentioned, so awareness about the future and also literacy about the future, but a very well spread awareness. So it's important, that point, but also engagement for change. And for that, I guess it's important from our point of view, researchers, practitioners, that we make an effort on the methodology side so that it can be affordable, so achievable and easier, perhaps to a wide range of actors, and also simpler. I tried in the last years to simplify a bit the foresight toolkit, and to give access to grassroots organizations and so on. I made an effort, but I saw results in the sense of changing these mindsets and giving some tools, even with this flexibility you mentioned, Mara, because I guess diversity in foresight is richness. But perhaps we can find some common points that are really the essence of foresight, or something like that, so that we have like a core, but then give this flexibility and try to make it more connected to action and to social engagement, because working with elites, it's okay and it's necessary. I've done it a lot, but then especially in certain places, you really need to engage with citizens if you want to respond to the big challenges we face, like climate change, or also migration. There are different things, and I feel after years that is not enough working with the elites, especially when you have this very structured hierarchy. And so sometimes it becomes a bit frustrating when you write a report again, a participative but even if it was a participatory process, then in the end, the action is missing because there's no political will, in fact. So perhaps at this point, I want to listen also your opinions on that, or your experience. Thank you.
On the political will, I would stop there, because that was the blame for a while. Now I think it's more and more political will, because what used to be wildcards as the pandemic, as we just mentioned, now they see that, well, they become reality. And I think it's more and more political will. The fact that the European Commission assigned a special position, Commissioner for Foresight, that's an example of clear political will. The fact that the summit is organized for improving futures literacy, mainly at the political level. I mean, it's not for us, among us. We are already coped it. No, it was mainly to improve and to exchange ideas among us on how can we bring it up there to the politicians and increase their political will. So I think that we are doing better on the political will. Maybe we are not there yet, but it's more and more. Yes, I agree with you that more action is needed. And how can we do it? I think that unfortunately, more catastrophes or unfortunate events improve people's inclination toward accepting more and more futures literacy. In the sense that they want to more and more contribute to foresight. And even the fact that your position at UNDP exists, that shows political will, because somebody does care about the future and gave you this position. I have seen that Riel came in. Maybe he wants to jump in and say a few words about political will.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I was just coming by to say hello, really. Sorry to drop in kind of out of the sky, but very much appreciate that this is going on. Very glad to see all of you around this. Political will. I think the one comment I would make, there's many, and I think that I agree with the points that Elizabeth was making, but there's something distinctive about a discipline that has a very strong and established presence across all universities. In other words, economics, sociology, statistics, these all anthropology, they provide a foundation that I think to a certain extent sustains a particular field through the cyclical attention that it gets due to news cycles and events. And that's where I think that and I hope we're in a turning point, which is, as in my view, future studies moves to an anticipatory systems perspective, where we begin to anchor future studies as a wide-ranging discipline, paying attention to how anticipation functions. And in my view, we move to this situation that took place with economics in the 19th century, I mean, many of you probably heard me tell this story, but at the middle of the 19th century, there were no economics departments in any American university. By 20 years later, there were basically every university had an economics department. What I hope we can see is that 20 years from now, so this is the scenario in my head, is speculative, is that every university has a future studies department. And that future studies department is not focused on coming up with the greatest and best scenario, because scenarios are a dime a dozen. And it's not a place where we just teach people how to produce scenarios. So a scenario shop, kind of tool shop, but rather is an academic discipline that studies the sources, the origins, the uses, and the implications of human imagination and the way we imagine the future. And to me, that's a very broad-based interdisciplinary activity. And on that foundation, we would begin to say that anticipation and future studies is it doesn't require political will any more than statistics requires political will. Now, of course, we know that there are many people who say that the way statistics are used, the way statistics are presented, and that's been a discussion that's been taking place for the last 10 years, has been inadequate. Absolutely. But nobody says, well, there's a cyclical period where people think statistics are important and they think that they're not important. Everybody thinks statistics are important. Everybody thinks that numbers count. Measurement matters. And I think that we can move to a position 10, 15, 20 years from now where anticipation and the future is the same. Nobody says, well, let's talk about the future just to do due diligence on the what ifs. That's to me inadequate. And of course, it'll be cyclical. And of course, it'll sit on a shelf. Because once you've produced the what's if, nobody's going to care. Because that's really not the way the future functions in human thinking and in human decision making. So sorry but that's kind of my perspective on this cyclical issue. It's one of the things that I think that futurists have been worrying about and trying to address for decades. Why does it take a superstar, an Alvin Toffler or, a mega trends to grab people's attention? Why all of a sudden around the year 2000 or 2008, all of a sudden people are worried about the future? Why does a pandemic create people, all of that is indicative to me of immaturity. And it's a field that is not at the level that it should be.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely agree. And you know what? More we speak about resilience because now you hear resilience. Well, you cannot create resilience without foresight. So more resilience becomes important for strategic thinking, or more foresight will be used in a way or another. Is it called foresight or anticipation or whatever, planning, strategic planning or whatever, as long as it does its work to look at trends and address and look at what are the actions that would best address those trends, it's fine with me. Call it whatever you want.
Yeah, Elizabeth, but if I could, I think to a certain extent, futures literacy as the anticipatory systems perspective capability flips the resilience issue on its head. Because rather than being the imperative of, trying to prepare for something, whatever that may be, the futures literacy flips it and says, the preparation is not for whatever it's going to be. It's not for some particular event. It's preparation for actually taking advantage and being able to understand and being able to be creative in the face of the creativity and novelty of the world around us. In other words, it's not based on some sort of predictive or scenario-driven preparatory approach. Of course, we should prepare if there's a fire in a building and there's a scenario that we know has happened in the past and we have exits, and that's preparing for a crisis. But the pandemic illustrates the fact that I think futurists are very familiar with, but which the general public and most people who are futures illiterate do not, which is that a surprise, it's not a surprise if it's not a surprise. In other words, there will always be surprises. And it's ridiculous to think that we can eliminate surprises in the universe, in which case the basic positioning of the future needs to change to encompass the embracing of uncertainty rather than the desperate pursuit of certainty. And this is a very fundamental shift. It's a paradigmatic break in the way people have integrated the future into their thinking, and the way we've expected decision makers and also paterfamilias to protect us from all that might happen. It changes our fundamental conception of what it means to be secure, away from a defensive, certainty-driven illusion into a much more confidence-based, experimental, learning agility. It's not one or the other, but we're very biased to the security, certainty, determinism, reductionism, and if I say it, Jose is on the line, fetishism of immortality, which I think fundamentally destroys our capacity to appreciate novelty and death as crucial aspects of the way in which our universe makes space and creates compost for creativity. So, I mean, this is not, we're not dealing with small things here. We're dealing with the elements that I think underpin the entire modern era. There's fundamental parts of the Renaissance progress and the false sense of science, which replaced absolutism and faith in the world by design, and that created basically the kind of willingness to accept the solutions of industrialization, which are top-down, command and control, certainty-based, path-dependent, etc. So sorry, I just get, this is a great topic, wonderful topic.
Perfect, but it does not exclude the fact that exactly what we said, that foresight, future literacy is important in order to address and to know how to think or to be creative, in order to trigger and support the dialogue and strategic thinking.
Yes.
It underpins it, and it changes this from a technocratic skill
exactly
to a universal characteristic. So instead of it being, as the illustrated manuscripts were in the Middle Ages, something that's exclusive to those in power who want to maintain their control of the mythology and the imaginations of the peasantry, you move to a universal capability, reading and writing for everybody, and you render that not technocratic. Everybody can be can understand the power of their own imagination in their own context, with their own narrative structures, their own values, their own aspirations. So this is a capability-based approach to development, which departs fundamentally from the teleological, ideological position that development is some sort of target that we need to hit, like Singapore, Silicon Valley, or Wakanda. So it also breaks from that basic impetus, in fact, of the UN system and post-war development.
Right, it empowers everyone, all the citizens, to think creatively. So even one reason to thank you for organizing this summit. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. You'll forgive me if I jump off because I've got quite a few others to see.
But I'm looking for answer to what you said, because you kind of triggered him to.
I would like to congratulate you, because 10 years ago you talk about future literacy, and it was a dream, and now it's a reality. And I would like to remember all the discussion about what you would like, and
yes.
now it is, and it's
well,
a very, very a good hope for the young and for the people, because when you believe in ideas and you are very cross with this idea come and is now a reality.
Thank you. Well, it's thanks to all of you as well, I must say, because it's been a community effort, and your support and the support of others, and the engagement and the debate and the refinement. My ideas continue to evolve because I'm engaged with all of you, and I think that's what makes it strong. So thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Real.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So, Jose, do you want to comment, because he mentioned you specifically?
We also have
yes,
Simone that maybe wants to jump in later.
Yeah, just a quick comment. You know, I work on opening boundaries to human thinking and human possibilities. And then obviously immortality is one of those. I think it was very funny that he says that he thinks death is good. So, and that I have a fetishism for immortality. This is absolutely not true, but I don't want to fall into these discussions. I think I want to open the possibilities. Also, if he wants to die, he can die. You know, death will always be there. Those who want to die and get old, decrepit, and die, they can do it. They will do it even in a future of immortality in the future. So I avoid those discussions, because those who want to die, please die. And the sooner they die, the better, so that the ones that want to become immortal continue living. It's very simple. I don't discuss about that. Anyway, the future is full of possibilities, and we need more possibilities for life, more life, and death for those who want to die.
Mhm.
Yeah, Simone, you wanted to add, to comment.
Thank you, thank you. Sorry, I was late because I had a meeting with a new PhD students interested in strategic foresight. So, but Real Miller said about something about statistics. I want to say that in generally, talking about statistics, we have in mind the numbers, table of numbers or trends. But the world is changing, also statistics is changing. Now we every day deal with the different kind of data. An opinion is a datum. Text is data. Images, videos are data. So now we are dealing with different kind of data, not numbers. Opinions, in particular opinions about from experts are data. So this is the role of statistics in this context, not number. I don't like number. I am a statistician, but I don't like numbers.
I do like numbers. Well, I'm economist, so foresight and cybernetics. So I work with both. It has to be exact. And for me to understand something, I have to see a trajectory, whichever way.
Me too, okay.
So I can comment on it. So I can find what is that is wrong with it. It can be right. But it helps focus or think. So I do like numbers, mostly to discover unmatches. Why something doesn't really match, why it doesn't match, what's the cost, so to trigger thinking.
Yes, and when you find something that doesn't match, the answer is given by the human brain, not by the computer or the numbers.
Right, but it supports thinking.
Yes, of course.
It needs support thinking.
Yes. But for example, now I am working on Twitter on the COVID pandemic. Twitter's data, text, a huge amount of text
mining.
Test mining. And then I am constructing the graph structure, network structure of this Twitter. And we are able now to distinguish between people that embraces conspiracy theories on COVID and separate them from those we don't believe there are conspiracy theories. It is possible with the new machine learning algorithms to understand what people think writing on social networks like Twitter or Facebook or something else.
But you know what? From my point of view, both are extremists.
Sorry?
Of my point of view, both are extremists. Those who do not support at all conspiracy theories because, hey, hello, there are back channels or things happening in the back that you understand or you don't know about. And those who support only, that's another, because I think that the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, yes, it's a continuum between two extremes. So each of us is in the middle of this continuum.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting to see where and what triggers one or the other. Well, those who do not support at all, I think they are too brainwashed. So I wouldn't really deal with those, honestly, all due respect. But those who do support, what triggered in them so much unconfidence in what is going on in the real world? Why did they become so? Because they are not much different of extremists in any other domain, being that religious ideology or whatever. These people are those who don't believe in the news or in what is discussed usually. Why? What is that triggered so profound conviction in that?
Yeah, profound conviction. Someone says that in the case of fear, people searching easy solution to complex problem. Someone said this is a mechanism of cognitive biases. So people want to find a fast solution, simple solution to complex problem. But I'm not a psychologist, but I understood that is a sort of a cognitive bias linked to the fear of the future, the fear of the tomorrow. And so maybe convincing explanation.
That's a very, very good subject for, or gives importance, even more importance to futures literacy.
Yes, yes.
But if people will be more futures literate,
yes,
they would have less fear.
Yes, yes, yes.
Be more prepared, empowered to address the challenges and probably look at all sides of the matter.
Yeah, I agree totally.
On the coin.
If I can, just on this point, yes, in the meanwhile, I think it's important for us to consider also the perceptions, because foresight is not only trends and hard data, statistics and analysts, but also the perceptions of actors. And in a time like this, when mistrust, misinformation, fear have a very great real impact in action, we have to consider that the data. So as you mentioned, the qualitative research, also the traditional ones of focal points, I don't know, or even polls, but then complemented with these new technologies. So EI and so on, so Twitter analysis and so on, so that we can understand a bit what is in the mind, so the fears and the perceptions of people. In our methodology, for example, we complement both. We always made like the combination of trends on one side and the other, the actors from one side, political makers, or policy makers, so the leaders, but always is together with public opinion, so trying to understand, and the combination of the three sources is very rich, and I guess in this time is very important for us also to these cognitive studies and understanding a bit the psychologies that has a lot of weight in decision making in the end.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, and that's excellent. And do you see any discrepancies? Which are the main discrepancies when you look at the view of policymakers and civil society? Can you point out just a few of them?
Yeah, that's I guess it's the most interesting part, because sometimes we analyze in the same country, but it looks like they live in different countries, because they are seeing the problem and the magnitude of the problems completely differently. For example, also the time you have to take a decision for someone is urgent, for the others is not urgent, or the magnitude of the reform or change that you have to apply. For example, yeah, people think that you really need a big change to be made, but elites wants to apply the same method they have already applied many times. So small reforms just to keep the system almost the same that before, just like gatto pardiano, I guess in Italian. So just to change, but not to change the fundamentals. And then, for example, this kind of thing I've already seen in some countries, like, for example, Honduras, provoked repeated crises because the magnitude of change was insufficient. So in the end, it was like stabilizing for 2 years, and then another crisis and another crisis, and each time is worse, and it becomes a multiple dimensional crisis. And in the end, right now, is like really completely difficult to act because it's the sum up of so many things. For example, some fundamental issue like the state is completely damaged and even coped by narco traffic or other things. And if you don't have the institutions to act on these multiple crises, it becomes really difficult. But on the other side, perhaps, as you mentioned before, catastrophe, so big problems, it becomes a negative, but an incentive to act. Otherwise, it's the collapse.
Well, you probably noticed that one of the challenges among the 15 global challenges that the Millennium Project addresses, a specific one is on transnational organized crime. And that's not just because transnational organized crime has twice the budget of all the military, but they really can influence decision-making way more than anything, mostly now that they have the money to buy the best hackers and to combine with state-sponsored terrorism. So you have organized crime combined with state-sponsored, some states, by some states, sponsored terrorism, and with terrorist organization. You got the perfect storm. And one is providing the money and the demand, and the other ones provide the support.
On the other hand, perhaps you have people in those countries when they don't have opportunities, social, economic opportunities for development, and sometimes organized crime is the only opportunity they have just to survive, and then so it's a negative combination, and it's very, very dangerous.
Right. And we still have to find the tools to address it.
You talk about the problem of the temporality, and it's very important in prospective foresight studies, because if you have not spatial temporality and if you don't explain what is the temporality you need to use for your studies, it's confusing. You need to have all the time really the space of the temporality of what you observe.
Yeah, good. Excellent point. Except for organized crime, I have no idea what the temporality could be.
Yes, but our temporality for the moment. Yes, I understand what you say, but some studies have not enough use temporality between different variables, because it's not the same when you talk about development or when you talk about education. The temporality is very important to have in your mind.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Thank you, Safia. Good point. Anyone want to add something? Milan, you didn't comment anything. I don't know, maybe he's not there. Well, we already actually run over our time. So if no one has to add anything, we might close the meeting. Mara,
Yes.
are you there?
Yeah, ma'am.
Thank you so
I sometimes trying to avoid to, put my face everywhere. So we can give the next appointment, which is at 4 p.m. with Jerome Glenn and Millennium Project CEO. We will be talking about future thinking for a global future intelligence system, and see you there. Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful conversation.
Okay.
Thank you, Puruesh, for being with us at 10. Thank you, Elizabeth, for introducing us the Millennium Project activities, and thank you all for joining us today.
Thank
so
you.
I hope to see you later.
Thanks, Mara.
Good
Thanks,
afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.